Well, our fall forecast has been released, but it's never too early to look ahead to the next season. So today we're going to be talking with meteorologist Doug Gillham about our sneak peek to our winter forecast. Let's add the initial caveat that we are already looking ahead to weather 3, 4, 5 months away. So that can be very difficult to do, but we have the man for the job right here. So we know our fall forecast has set a gradual slide into fall, but potentially an abrupt start to winter. So what are some of the indicators telling us about when that winter weather might kick into gear in Canada?
When we do a seasonal forecast, we look at ocean water temperatures around the globe, dominant pattern drivers, and then we look back at history at years that were similar. And when we look back at years with a developing weak La Nina, we do see this common theme of a warmer than normal September, October, and then the roads diverge on November, depending on how La Nina is developing.
Right.
Some of those years, the mild pattern persists through November, and then there's a free fall into winter for December. Other years, that free fall occurs at the start of November,
right,
and November feels more wintry. Regardless, you do get that abrupt transition from
right,
a mild pattern to a cold pattern. The uncertainty is how quickly will that happen?
All right, so enjoy those warmer temperatures as they're around, because we might need to pull out those winter jackets very quickly in a couple of months. Anecdotally, a couple of years ago, you were telling me before we started, at the end of ski season, you were already starting to get sad about the following winter being last winter because you knew it wasn't going to be nearly as good. Last winter across the country really lacked that quintessential punch of a Canadian winter. Do we expect more of a traditional winter this year?
Yeah, I do think winter will try to reestablish its reputation this year. Last year we knew we were going into a strong El Nino. You tend to flood the country with mild Pacific air in those winters. That's exactly what we had. This year, with a developing weak La Nina, still a lot of details to be worked out, but we do think winter will show up. Historically, we tend to see more of a classical start to the season. You don't have to wait till the end of winter for
right,
some cold weather to show up. The question is, does it hit early and then fade,
right,
or does it hit and stay?
Right.
Now, we do expect across Western Canada that it's much more likely to persist.
Right.
The question is, as we get into the 401 corridor, Southern Ontario, Southern Quebec, whether that cold fights and wins or fights and loses. And that's the key, really, to how the season will be remembered, is whether you get mostly snow or you get that mess.
Which was very similar to what we had in Southern Ontario, as you mentioned, that area last year, which was just absolutely detrimental for my backyard rink last year. It was, for the second year in a row, not a very good year. Okay, so when we talk about compiling a winter forecast, where do meteorologists such as yourself, where around the globe do you look for clues about what that season is going to hold?
Well, the dominant pattern driver, but not the only pattern driver, are ocean water temperatures in the Pacific Ocean, whether it's El Nino or La Nina. And what we're going to be really looking at this year is we know there'll be a weak La Nina, but history tells us it is dramatically different whether the coolest water is in the Central Pacific or in the Eastern Pacific. And that's going to be the key as to whether winter really takes over most of the country or whether it ends up being focused more in the West. Regardless, we think we're going to get some winter before the holidays.
Okay.
It's just whether it then continues. But regardless, we'll probably get that drop off from the mild pattern.
All right, so Dr. Doug, not promising a white Christmas just
No.
yet, but factors indicating that it could happen for many across the country. Again, we are still several weeks and months away from that, so enjoy the warmer weather before that winter really kicks